G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Darrell Evans from Yokel Local. He's based in Las Vegas, United States. Thanks for your time today, Darrell.
Troy, thanks for having me.
Let's start with how we know each other. We both use the Podmatch platform to find guests to come on our cast. You've got your own cast as well, and also to be a guest on other casts.
Yeah, exactly. I think we got connected there. Your team and my team got connected, and here we are.
Maybe tell the audience a bit about your podcast.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate that. The show is called the Mind Shift Podcast. It is anywhere you're listening to Troy's show. Show interviews, very similar to yours, interviews dynamic entrepreneurs who we try to talk down their journey from inspiration to realization and when life knocked them down, from breakdown to breakthrough, which seems to be the never-ending cycle of an entrepreneur.
Yep, that's right. We'll tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So our business is a digital marketing agency. We're actually moving more into the media space with the evolution of things changing online. But at the end of the day, customers come to us for 4 reasons. Number one, digital strategy for growth, the skill and time to execute it, and for an ROI. And so we do all the same channels that most people do. We just have a very specific sprint model of how we operate. So we've tried to take a traditional service business and productize it in a way so that we can deliver clearly what the objectives are going to be from start to finish.
Yeah.
Now, when it works, they stay for a long time. When it doesn't, they have an easy way to leave and understand that we gave it a good go.
Out of interest, is SEO a part of what you advise people to invest in?
Troy, 12 years ago, we started the company. It was the number one driver of our revenue, number one driver of our clients' results and success. In the last 3 to 5 years, it has moved to the back of the line for what we recommend because of the dynamic of SEO and the way Google changes things, and the fact that there's a limited amount of space on the first page of Google. So it isn't that SEO doesn't work. SEO works just fine. It just takes longer if you're newer to the game, and most business owners don't have the stomach for the journey. So what we try to do is go out and go right to customer acquisition, either on search or social, or past customer database reactivation. And then we bring SEO in after we've proven ROI.
Yeah, great. And so you'll tailor that order of what you recommend to the client. What their number one might be, for example, email marketing, or for another client, number one might be social ads. You actually tailor it.
Yeah. We have a very simple process. I'm very formulaic in how I've done business over the years in marketing. I try to keep things in recipes, as I call them, or frameworks. So at the end of the day, number one, who is the buyer, who you're trying to sell to? It's pretty basic. Everybody knows it. But the next question is, where are we going to find them in the next 60 to 90 days? Where are we most likely to find them, and where is your most profitable conversion going to happen? So sometimes the most profitable conversion takes 6 to 18 months to convert because they're B2B, high ticket. They could be a personal, or not a personal. They could be like an attorney, where it just could be a long sales cycle. So we try to find the shortest sales cycle with the highest profitability in the first 60 to 90 days. Get some closings on the book, get some traction, and then we can start to scale into some of the more longer term plays.
How did you start out?
Ironically, this business started out of my frustration of my success in the mortgage industry. I used to own a mortgage company from 2010, and I started online 2003 out of a frustration of being tired of answering the same questions over and over again, even though they were very valid questions. But I started asking myself from a curiosity standpoint, there's got to be a better way than to keep saying the same thing to 50 new people every month. So I started my first email marketing account. We built our first website 2004. Then came YouTube, and what I found was during the recession, the 2008 thing, when the real estate market, financial markets tipped over, no one was doing internet marketing in my space, and I was starting to do some consulting. And before I knew it, I realized that I wanted a different lifestyle, and I'd done some work with a business coach, and I didn't think the mortgage industry was going to be where I wanted to lay my hat the next 20 years. And so I said, this internet thing looks like it's going to grow for a long period of time. Let's make a pivot. And I've been in marketing and sales for a long time. And so it just felt like the right move.
Yep.
Met my partner at the time, and we got started.
So in 2004, when you started putting those answers out there and that email list, that was in the mortgage space, not what digital marketing.
It was.
Yeah,
It was. Yeah.
got it.
Yep. It was a great tool to unpack, to get out of my head. We teach this very strategy to this day. It's interesting. 20 years later, one of the number one strategies we see that still produces the highest ROI is email.
There's some stats from the DMA, the Direct Marketing Association in the US, that I read a year or so ago, that for every dollar you invest in email marketing, you get $44 back. I think number two is SEO at $22, and then socials are at $20. So people think email is dead, but it is very, very much still where the money's at.
100%, 100%. You don't make it on the front end necessarily, but it's the longer term play. When you look at the cost of acquisition of an email address or a relationship, and if you treat it right, that person may not buy for 12 to 18 months. There's another fascinating story that I learned back in 2003. I didn't learn about it until 2006. And it had to do with an industry that dealt with magazine subscriptions offline. They'd done a study over 24 months of inquiries they had about these subscriptions. And what they found was that 55% of all of the inquiries bought the magazine or a similar magazine somewhere in the next 24 months. So what we learned from that, and what our coaching taught us at that time, was there's a certain percentage that'll do it now, there's a certain percentage who'll do it in the near future, and there's a much larger percentage that'll do it in that 6-month to 18-month window. The question is, will you be there when they want to do it? So that has always been my mode of operation. And so there's a part of the game is the patience of getting the acquisition of the relationship and then staying top of mind. And how do you do that without being kind of an annoying pest, as I call it?
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised. And then those ROI numbers could be hundreds and hundreds of dollars to one.
Yeah, definitely. So was the mortgage business your first business? You started in 2000, and maybe go back to, if you jump from a career or university, how did you?
Yeah. So no, first business is like some of us who started out of the trunk of my car when I was in college, needing to put some dollars in my pocket. I was an athlete in school, in high school, but my college, when I got to college, I knew my sports career was over. So I started selling hats, T-shirts, sportswear, hoodies, things like that out of the swap meet.
So that's
back of the car.
Fred Smith from Nike. That's exactly how he started out, wasn't it?
I believe he's got a similar story where maybe it was garage or something like that, or running around
I think it was
to
out of
different
the trunk,
places.
out the back of his car, or his ute, or whatever you call it over there, selling sneakers at stadiums or merchandise as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a good love for me, but I didn't love the retail business, as I say, but it did teach me how to do commerce and P&L, renting a space, and even though it was a part-time space, I was in college at the time studying engineering. I ended up switching to finance. I was working full-time at a little restaurant here in the United States called Taco Bell. Many people will know that store. So I was a general manager, so I got a lot of good business experience at the age of 20, and so I carried that job through college, but I also started in the real estate industry in '92, and then right out of college, I ended up switching and getting my degree in finance. But right out of college, I went into the financial services world. Think mutual funds, stocks, bonds, insurance, that kind of thing. Didn't feel like my fit, so I left that business. I did well in 2.5 years, but it didn't feel like my fit, and that's when I landed in the mortgage business, and that kind of became a pretty good run with that sort of three and a half businesses later.
So you started working for someone else in the mortgage space and then started your own up in 2000?
Actually, always been independent. So in the United States, we're independent contractors. So we have to go get our own business. We just have a processing center that takes care of the back end. We pay them a fee to do it. So every dollar, I haven't been paid a salary. I think there was a short window I got paid a salary, but for the most part, the last 24 out of 30 years, I've not been paid a salary. So I've been entrepreneurial in one way or another. Yep. But I ended up meeting my mortgage partner. We opened a brokerage around 2003. I'd been a sole producer and I had a small team. And then we decided to open our own brokerage in 2005.
Yep. Great. And how old were you in 2000 when you started that business?
30.
Great. And so you said 3.5 businesses. I think we've covered off the first one, and the mortgage business and Yokel Local. What's the third one?
So yeah, the financial service business was 2.5 years. I was a financial service rep, did pretty well with that. And then I've got this one little business that didn't do so well.
Tell me about that. I've got a couple of those tucked away.
It was and there was a janitorial type business. I went to this entrepreneurial conference or fair, and I got this little idea when I saw this presentation about a in in Las Vegas specifically, we had ceiling tiles that were porous, and they would get water stains if the roof leaked, because Vegas doesn't get a ton of rain. So sometimes you don't know you got a leak until it rains. And so we had this little cleaning supply, janitorial style business where we go in and clean these tiles. What we didn't understand was our cost of operations in the business. So we had all of this inventory, the chemical to clean it, all this and that. We had to pay people to do it. It was harder. It cost more than they said it was going to cost to do it. We had to use more product than they sold us, and we had to pay the people more to do it. And before you know it, it was like, yeah, this ain't going to work.
No.
I think I left that business $4,000 upside down. When you're in your 20s, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but $4,000 upside down in debt
It is.
in your 20s is a lot of money when you're only making a certain amount.
Yeah, it's true. Do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business?
Current business. So we are about a $1 million run rate company at this point. We started like everybody else, zero. I think we went from zero to, it was three of us at the beginning. My partner, we had three people at the beginning. I don't remember the early numbers, but we tracked up to about 300,000 in the first couple of years. We ended up taking a couple of leaps to 500. Our agency has always been boutique. So we hovered around the $1 million mark. And my partner and I had differences of opinion. He's not a bad guy, but he didn't really want to go past that. And we had a decent lifestyle. And when you don't have a ton of overhead, and we've regressed to about 750.
Yep.
And that we had a buyout, or should I say, we've had a little bit of, he decided to leave the business. And
yep.
So now I'm restructuring the company and in this model sort of that I hinted at. And I'm actually getting it positioned to be acquired. We've actually had 3 or 4 acquirers, but I'm like, you're not going to acquire much, so I'm not interested. So,
yep.
So we're gonna change the business model, or we've changed the business model and productizing what we do, so that I think it'll be more attractive to an M&A market as time goes. I think we'll get to 2 million this year.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Fantastic.
Run rate, not cash collected, but probably run rate. I think we're.
In what year did you start Yokel Local?
2011.
2011. Yep. Great. And so that's 12 years. I'm just checking I've had enough coffee today. And started with 3 FTEs. And how many did you get to your peak? And I assume you've come back a bit from that. Full-time.
Yeah, we've had 14 full-time at one point, just with all the dynamics that we went through. That was probably one of the mistakes in the agency as well, doing too much. Yep. We did too much. So we're pulling back. We have 6 full-time now, some onshore, offshore. So we've been able to utilize some offshore talent that helps with costs. And we've got some various freelancers for different projects that are skill-based, that don't have full-time need on the staff. So
yep. Great. And what about number of full-time equivalents in the mortgage business? It was just you to begin with, and your business partner came in. You already had a small team, but you grew that from 1 FTE to what was its peak, and before you sold out.
Yeah. So with me, it was me and 3. And then when we went to do the brokerage, it was me, my partners. We got to, I think we had 8 full-time, but then we had 106 contractors that were agents.
Wow.
So that was a total, but they weren't on payroll, right?
No.
So they were paid a commission to drive business, but we did do all the training, and we were responsible for all 106 of them. So we had to, that was the biggest group, but
yep.
And that company was doing about 2 million or so.
Yep. That's to cover the 8 team members, basically, obviously not the contractors.
Yeah. The contractors were paid on commissions, and we collected a fee off on the production of the business. Yeah.
When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
The moment I succeeded, oddly enough, Troy, was the day that I walked off a job in 2000, because there was a little bit of a time period where my life got a little bit out of control from a personal standpoint, not business economics or whatever. But I mean, economics were a little weird too. And I'd found myself a little bit not trusting in myself, and I ended up taking a job for a short period of time, and I ended up walking off that job, and I didn't have a paycheck coming. It was the day that I left and went into the mortgage business, but it was the day I decided to bet on myself. That was the day I won. And it doesn't mean betting on yourself makes it easier, but I've been winning ever since. I wake up every day and I get to bet on myself, good, better, and different.
Yep. What does success look like to you?
Believe it or not, I've had success for me is not the cliche of do anything I want whenever I want with whoever I want, right? That was the 20-year-old Darrell talking. Um, Today's success is uh, not having phone calls after 4 o'clock, not having meetings after 3, not taking meetings before 8, having weekends to myself, being able to. And so it's also one of those things that's really interesting, and that's giving people fulfilling opportunities to explore their gifts in life, like employing people, giving them an opportunity to have a ripple effect in their family, and letting them lead their lives. Funny enough, just an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, we had a really difficult situation at the agency. Some things got a little bit weird with a customer and some problems, and my project manager called, and I think he thought I was mad at him. I was mad at the situation. We had to have a difficult conversation in a team meeting. He calls to apologize and take responsibility for it. And I said, "This is not your fault. And please understand." But when we have to have difficult conversations, and he said to me, "I just can't believe you're saying this," because he's used to an environment where everything is negative, talk down, you suck, so to speak. And all I said was, "Listen, we have difficult conversations because we have to have them.
Yeah.
But you're my guy."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I love that, and just giving people opportunities to grow, and gives me the freedom to do a couple other projects outside of the agency as well.
Yeah, that's great. I've certainly seen, experienced, and also executed some shit management in my time. A phrase I coined from basically from listening to people on this podcast, situations like that is managers tend to manage by exception. They only talk about things when people have made a mistake or something's gone wrong. But I'm guessing with your style of leadership and management, you go out of your way also to point out the positive, you give positive feedback when team members have actually done a great job at something or even a small thing.
Yeah, it's so important. I think it's important. No one wants to come. First of all, we have to realize that employees have options today. Team members have options today. So, and I like to use the word team member, not employee,
Me
because
too. Yep.
to me, it's more adaptive to culture and
Yep.
environment.
Totally.
But we've got to recognize as employers, we just went through a couple of years where there was this great resignation and all these other things. Look, today's technological world, team members and people have options. So if you don't create an environment where they feel welcome and warm while we're working on the journey and the hard stuff, you're not going to keep them. And let's be clear, you and I know this: turnover and hiring and retaining good talent is one of the biggest costs in a business.
And
So whether you're
I
on a
think
team
it's
of
the hardest thing. I think it's the hardest thing in small business is people, but particularly recruiting people, getting that right.
absolutely.
Mm.
I mean, think about it. When you recruit someone, and by the way, I have a whole new team now because our whole agency's turned over in the last year. And it wasn't because the people there were bad. It's just the world of change caused the agency to turn over. And I had to think back. I've got, 6 new people now who didn't know me before last May.
Yeah.
And they are coming in to believe something they can't even see in my head. So I have to be able to articulate where we're going because they left something else to come here.
Yes.
And so the key, like you said, is how do you recruit? And there's an art and a skill to that. And there's you don't get it all right. I think there were 3 that came in last year that are no longer with us, and so we had a few misses. Some of that was in duress because I was in duress with a lot of change. But I think it's one of the things CEOs and business owners have to focus on. I mean, it's more the numbers matter. Don't get me wrong, but you got to take care of these people, and it's otherwise you'll never get what you want.
That's right. I mean, as Jim Collins coined in "Good to Great," his second book, people aren't your most important asset. The right people are. Get the right people on the bus, wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right
100%.
seats. And so, if that is true, then the most important job a manager does is recruitment. And I see, and I certainly did this myself early on in my business career, that we just don't invest enough time. We don't value it enough. We suffer from warm body syndrome. I just need someone to help with the resourcing, and they get B and C players on, toxic assholes. And, so we've literally just finished pulling together a toolkit for this for small business owners called the Ultimate Recruitment Toolkit, pulling all our grey hairs and advice over the years and best books we've seen and tips from everything into, a short course basically to help small business owners pull it off the shelf and put it into their business because we just don't see people value it.
Yeah, no, it's got to be a great resource. And I can't echo your thoughts more. I've repeated Jim Collins' quote so many times, and it's difficult, right? Because when the part that's hard is right people on the bus. You've got to be very careful today to make sure that I'm always okay for training. I don't care really what you know. If I need a rock star, I'll of course hire for that, but I'd rather train someone up who's coachable than hire a jerk.
Yeah.
Right. And so my interview process and recruiting process is more about trying to figure out if this person has the character for us.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I don't seem to be able to coach through character flaws.
No.
And so I'd rather have, so one of the things, Troy, I've done, and people laugh at me sometimes when I say this, but part of the interview process, I'm trying to determine whether I would invite this person to my house for a barbecue on Saturday.
I've heard that someone else described that. It's called the airport rule. So if you're
Interesting,
go on and
never heard of it that way.
Long flight, international or something, and then your plane's delayed by 4 or 5 hours, could you sit in an airport and talk to this person just for 4 or 5 hours, let alone sitting on the plane with them? You know, your trip's been 100%. Extended. Yeah.
Never heard of that. That's fascinating. I always use the barbecue scenario, but I never heard that. That's great.
The two things I look for in recruitment, there's exceptions when you need someone with deep experience to come in, but exactly what you're saying there, I look for attitude and aptitude. So if they've got the right attitude, and that comes back to the character and the culture integrity part of it, and secondly, they've got to be smart. They can pick things up quickly, but if they've got the right attitude and they're passionate and they're driven, they're the two things you want, because for most roles, you can coach and train people up to the level you need them.
100%. I agree.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business? Perfect question for you.
Market a fast-growing business.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. Market a fast-growing business. I think the thing that a lot of us get caught up in, we've been fortunate to work with a lot of fast-growing businesses. Interestingly enough, marketing a fast-growing business is more about internal operations than it is the scaling of the marketing. And that is to be very mindful of your internal operational systems, and are you dedicating the resources to that internal growth? It's not hard for us to scale dollars on Google ads or Facebook ads. So if the growth is coming from that, then that's fine. The question is are we capitalizing on all of those internal leads? Do we have enough resources? If I could tell a quick story, we had a company come along. They were doing 4 million or so. They were growing rapidly. They got to about 11 million and started to feel a little bit of weirdness. And they were giving us lots of credit for all the things that were happening. This entrepreneur decided to build a division strictly for the work that was coming in from online, because he already had an offline and insurance-based business, partner business. And it was one of the smartest things he did. And he ended up going up to 20 something million and ended up getting bought for 30 something.
Yep.
So I think that's one of the things. Like, I don't think scaling digital or marketing and acquisition is that difficult anymore. The playbook is kind of simple. The question is how do we handle customer service, acquisition, on the onboarding of our customers, servicing our customers, and making sure our brand reputation doesn't get messed up, because today you're just 2 clicks away from bad reputation on Google or Facebook, and that can throw your growth off quite a bit, because people are like, hey, you're not taking care of people.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Your reputation, even offline before, digital really took off, that word of mouth and the reputation. If you're growing too fast and you neglect those systems, but also the focus on excellent customer service, then you can go into a death spiral. It just keeps getting worse and worse. When I talk about marketing, customer service for me is part of marketing. It's not just the referral and word of mouth, but it's for the customer, how they experience your brand. So I think it's very, very important. How did you fund the business?
Daily.
No one's ever answered that way.
Daily. Regularly. No, I've actually never had a business that was funded by anything other than our own capital or debt capital. So I've never been on the venture side of it, although I am now working with an accelerator group, learning some of the M&A side of the world and the VC side of the world. But yeah, managed it out of cash flow. Again, debt through the typical instruments, SBA loans and credit cards and other loans that are not so savory with interest rates when cash flow hits tight spots. So all the typical measures I think most of your audience probably has.
Yep. Credit cards, yeah. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Hell no. No. Let me see if I understand the question. Would I take a bunch of capital and start another digital marketing agency?
Yeah. Yep.
No, actually, no. Troy, I'll be honest with you. This is the hardest business I've ever had. And I'm going to tell you why. We are responsible for growing companies on platforms we don't own that change all the time. but yet we're responsible for the result. And that has been a very interesting customer client service provider dynamic, which is why we're changing the model today to get it back to where it's very product based, where people can understand I'm buying this or I'm buying this and I'm buying this, and we can deliver the output consistently, which is why I believe we're going to take it to a whole new level of scale. And we're pulling back. One of the problems with digital agencies, as you get good, people ask you to do a lot more stuff that you weren't designed to do, supposed to do, wanted to do, and you can feel like referring it to a referral partner puts your relationship at risk. And in some cases, you get the wrong partner and things get really goofy. Um, but I think that was one of the traps in the agency. And so the answer would be no, I wouldn't restart this business again. I'm not going to leave it. I'm going to change it, grow it, and do something else with it. But I don't think I'd ever start it again.
Yep. Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
As an agency owner, and again, I don't know if I want to make it so specific to agency owners, but I think the biggest challenge has been the barrier to entry with providers coming into the space, and business owners don't know who's who. If you think about it, there's no licensing, there's no certification. Someone can literally take a class on a weekend from $15 on udemy.com to a $10,000 certification, finish the course curriculum in 8 hours, and have a certificate that says they're licensed to take your money on Monday. And unfortunately, I'm on the other side of the vast majority of our. Here's how I know I've got a good client or customer in front of me, Troy. They're really pissed off.
Yep.
And I have to weed it out. And I have to weed it out for a few calls, or our team does. And why do I say that that's our best customer? Well, I know that they're trying, they're in the game. So if I have to convince them that they need to run ads, or I have to convince them that they need a HubSpot or they need email, or if I have to convince them, I'm talking to the wrong person. So believe it or not, the sign of a good customer for our business is they're coming to us a little ticked off. They're not mad at us. They're mad at, but that's the problem in the industry is there's no policing mechanism. And I wish it would change. And again, maybe I should be a part of the change instead of just complaining about it. But that's one of the challenges.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Team. Back to what we said earlier. I mean, you got to think about it. People underestimate the technical expertise necessary and the analytical components to be good at digital marketing. And by the way, I had an aerospace engineer on my podcast, and he validated something of what I said. You have to be you either have to be a great analyst and have some of that analytical ability. You have to have creative writing ability. You have to be, you obviously have to have a number of skills to be good at this. And so getting those pieces on your team where they can cross-function together, right? So you got to have different people, probably your audience, and you're familiar with things like Colby, disk testing, predictive index, and those kind of things. How do you get those people to work across the aisle? And when you've got a very cautious person over here because they're an analyst, and then you've got someone here who's a marketer who's running ads and they want to test. And then this person's like, well, but we don't have the budget, So it's trying to get those people working well together, all for the benefit of the customer and to drive return on investment has been probably one of our biggest challenges. Finding good people, not the problem. Getting them to collaborate for the end goal where they can agree to disagree and still move the test and move the campaign forward has been very interesting.
Yeah, it's like herding cats, and even more reason why you should develop yourself as a manager so you can get more out of your team and make them more collaborative.
Yeah. We've had to create I think the reminder for us is failure is welcome in our world. So if you can't adapt to failure quickly, and failure is nothing but learning means we can make a better decision next time through. And the question is how fast we do that determines how fast we get our clients success. And some people ask us, well, what way are we going to do this? And they don't understand. Sometimes I don't know is the right answer. Well, how are we going to go from 1 to 5 million? I don't know. But what we're going to do is put our recipe together, put our formula together, and then we're going to figure it out as we go. It might take 2 months, 6 months, 8 months, but we will get you there. Otherwise, we wouldn't have onboarded you as a customer, because we're very clear that we're not going to onboard somebody just to practice.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely. What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
What have I enjoyed least? I think the stressor is cash flow can be weird because sometimes, especially in our business, where our cost of goods is humans. And so balancing cash flow, sometimes you've got cash that's due out, but you need new investment today. Um, I don't know that that's always been the stress or the cash part, but it's back to that thing we were just talking about, which is the people. Finding good talent when markets are really growing became quite challenging for us. There was always people available, but do they have the skill to jump into where we are from an experience standpoint? And do we have enough runway to train them up? Is always challenging. So sometimes there's always I've had as many as 220 people apply for a job at our company. That seems unbelievably crazy. It's not because we have a fantastic company, we're like best in America. It's that there's people available for this industry. Weeding through to find the ones that actually can deliver is where some of the challenge goes. So when you're going fast and you bring someone in that needs too much hand holding, or they're not self starters who are willing to go quickly and get the information. I had a perfect example. I had a gentleman from Chile who joined our team, and the minute he ran up against something he didn't know, before we ever had a meeting, he'd gone and figured it out.
Wow.
It was just amazing. And so for those, that's what I love. It's the person who doesn't have that sort of attitude. And sometimes you just don't know. But it's like you said before, recruiting, team building, managing, giving people room to roam, and then getting them to blend. To me, is always the challenge when you're growing fast.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
Freedom. I mean, the freedom to not be bound by some of the bureaucracy of big company, the politics, being agile, right? I mean, if I don't like part of our business model, we can literally stop it
Yep.
and do something different. So I love the agility of a small business, flexibility, agility. I love the relationships. We've done work with some bigger companies, and it's just very vendorish. And so I just didn't want that vendorish lifestyle.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
We never get it done.
Yep.
It's never over.
Yeah.
It's never over. It don't matter how good it looks on paper. Don't matter how many weeks you take off. I remember Jeff Bezos was quoted as saying the measure of an entrepreneur is the first goal of an entrepreneur is to see if you can take a month off and things don't break, not 2 weeks, but a month. But he says the real measure is if you take a year off and you come back and the company's better off without you than it was with you. And so I I think about those quotes all the time and think, but it's never done.
Yeah. The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Take care of yourself, because this is hard. Take care of yourself. If you're really honest, the demands will come to you because you wear the hat. You're the CEO, founder, business owner, whatever you call yourself. Take care of your body. Jim Rohn said it this way, and it's been health and fitness has been a part of my life, but at times we get caught up in the run of it and the stress of it, but carve out that personal time, and whether that's an hour a day, 2 hours a day, I don't care what the fitness thing is, but move your body, breathe, detach from the email, give yourself some space. I've developed a process where I turn off no notifications come in. I go check email when I'm ready to check email. So I would say carve out space so that you can have some personal time before the rest of the world takes you over.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, email is a great example there. It's a choice. It's asynchronous. You can check it when you want to check it, but it is such a blight in today's society, and business owners are not immune to it. Just that pull or draw to always wanting to be seeing if someone loves them, if they've sent them an email. So yeah, it's really tough.
Yeah.
You've got to work on it.
Yeah.
Find it hard to define a clear strategy, then communicate it and execute it alongside the rest of your team? Or you currently don't work a simple quarterly strategic plan to boost your team's performance? Our Business Growth Formula online course is perfect for small business owners with 5 to 30 team members wanting to grow. We share the mindsets, habits and tools to be a legendary leader in your business. GrowSmallBusiness.com.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes and advice for those listening?
Two good ones. If it doesn't feel right, don't hire them. trust your gut a little bit. I've done that twice where it didn't feel right. But to your point, I think you said earlier, I was in a little bit of a spot and hired him anyway. And I'll be god dog. It didn't take long to figure out. My gut said, don't hire him. And I hired him anyway. So trust your gut. I think some of the wins have been in the same regard, trusting your gut, even if it doesn't seem like they're the right fit. So I hired a young lady named Amanda. She's now gone on to work for HubSpot, which is a fairly large marketing automation. And you guys might know them there.
Yep.
She started with us not long out of college. She didn't have the experience to be our content manager. We hired her. Just something about her background, her journey. She'd had far more experience for that short window of time before she got out of college. And I think she was a year or two out of college. And it just felt right. She goes on to run our content department for 4.5 years. And of course, she basically told me probably at 26 or 7, she's like, we're never going to hire an outside writer ever again. And I'm like, really? I said, can you come up with a plan to do that? She came up with a plan. She goes, will you let me do it? Yeah, we'll fund it. Do it. She did it. She was amazing. She ended up going on to HubSpot. We're still friends. She doesn't live too far from me here in Vegas, and she's just crushing it at HubSpot. To me, one of the best things ever.
What are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Wow, it's a great question now, Troy. We used to have a brick and mortar office here in Las Vegas. Today, I have a virtual team, and I am going to be admitting that I'm struggling with that a little bit. I've got people in Philippines, India, several parts of the United States. I'm struggling with it. I'm not sure. It is very interesting. So let me tell you what we do now. What we used to do, which I loved, which was we had monthly potlucks and we had get-togethers and dinners and go across to the axe throwing place. And today it seems a little less genuine to send gift cards and things of that nature. So what I've allowed them to do and allow us to do is just to have some laughter and have some fun and joke around. Don't just start the sprint meeting and go straight into the grind of the day. Like, we know the day is here. We know the stuff that's on the docket, but what'd you do this past weekend? What'd you have the most fun with your kids? Did you do anything exciting? So we carve out some space for that. The other thing I try to do is I really only want 5.5 hours of them in the day. They're scheduled for 8. And I don't make jokes about, I'm like, get up, go leave if you have a problem, stress out. I need 5.5 hours during these windows. I don't care when you do the other 2. Make sure you take your lunches and your breaks and all this stuff. So I try to make sure it's a fluid, flexible environment, but we are clear on the mission and the goal. And our project system will tell us if we're on track or off track. So from a culture standpoint, we try to do that. Again, you said it earlier, as a leader, I try to make sure people have autonomy to make mistakes and to do things and without repercussion. If we make a mistake, we try to make sure we learn from it and say, hey, let's SOP this so we don't make a problem with this in the future. But Troy, it is one of the things in the last, we've been 100% virtual now since the pandemic.
So 3 years.
We've only been 100% non-Vegas for about 2 years, because even when we were in the pandemic, most of our team still worked in Vegas. So now I've only got one other staff member here in my neighborhood.
Yep. Yeah, it's tough. And tell our audience how you've handled balance.
I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I'll repeat it. So balance, I've always believed this idea of work-life balance was a fallacy, even for our team members. You're not a business person in the day and a personal person at night. You're one human. So the question is how do you do what you do well? Because if you're an achiever, I'm assuming if you're an achiever, it's got to be integrated. So for me, it's personal time in the morning. That personal time for me is I wake up 5:30. Again, I'm not in business until 7:30 or 8 o'clock. I cut off my day at 4 o'clock, except for today when I'm on a fascinating interview with a great guy named Troy Truan. But I'm normally cooking dinner 2 or 3 times a week. There's a window from 4 to 6, 7 where I'm with the grandkids, I'm with the kids, I'm with the family. And I may peep back into work again from 7 to 8, 8:30. And then I try to get a decent night of sleep, 7.5 hours. Water is my number one drink. Yep. I try to drink gobs of water. I've got a standing desk. So it's again, finding those pockets to be mindful for you. Massages. I went to the pedicure and manicure the other day. It's like, just be you. Like at the end of the day, you're never going to get it done. The money will never always be in one pot of gold in one spot. Just take care of yourself along the way. And so that's some of the things I do now.
Very good advice. And I think, yeah, it sounds like you've nailed it, but obviously after many years of practice, Darrell.
It has been a lot of practice. And don't get me wrong, there are 10% of the time stretches where I'm a little out of balance, but I did get some coaching one time. And the guy was named Jim McMahon. And he said, not the football player, by the way, but he said, there are seasons when you'll be extraordinarily out of balance so that you can have an ultimate life balance.
Yep.
And so I just try to be mindful of when those out of balance moments are. And even then, double and triple down on personal time and personal space and taking a breather.
Yep. How much professional development have you invested in yourself?
Dollars or hours, or it's a gob?
Probably both. Yeah.
Yeah, a gob. So since my early 20s, I mean, I was an entrepreneur. None of my friends were entrepreneurs. So in my early 20s, I'm starting this entrepreneurial thing. None of my friends are doing it. They're partying, they're kicking it, they're having a good time. So my first days were Anthony Robbins, Personal Power, Unlimited Power, Awaken the Giant Within, Les Brown, Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy. So I've been a student of personal development and really don't think I would have made it without it. I've had more days where I've wanted to quit than most people would probably want to admit, but the reality is I just don't stay there very long. The days when I'm throwing in towel, it's just a thought. And then I get right back and say, listen. And so I have been I've been coached now for 24 years. I've been in masterminds now for probably 20-ish years. And I'm constantly listening to podcasts and things of that nature to, not because I don't think I know, but just to hear. Sometimes it's just like, oh, I'm not the only one going through this, right? So I'm a big believer in personal development, and some people think it's woo woo and fishy, and don't. I invest quite a bit.
Yeah, you've mentioned coaches a few times. Have you had mentors along the way?
Yeah, most definitely. I don't. Well, I wouldn't be standing here without mentors. I feel like the phrase when I grew up was self-made millionaire, self-made. I'm not sure any of us are self-made at the end. I mean,
No.
I think if you really think you got there on your own, there may be a few people like that. But I love looking back and giving credit to people that probably wouldn't have even thought that they did anything that was significant. I can name no short of a couple of dozen people that wouldn't even have been paid for anything, but who said something to me at a moment of a discussion that was it was pivotal. And so, but yeah, I've got a mentor right now. His name is Jerry Green. He's not in my industry. He's been a mentor of mine now for 14 years. I think we'd call each other mentors of each other's scenario. But yeah, both non-paid and paid mentors, as well as coaches and masterminds. So absolutely.
Great. Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
I don't have a board of directors, but I do have an advisor. I've had for about probably 7 years now. He's part of he runs the mastermind here locally that, he works with small business owners and that kind of thing. So yeah, he's looking in on me every month and keeping me accountable to the numbers and helping me make sure that he's very astute. He's turned over 2 businesses, multiple 8-figure businesses, and his business partners turned over a couple of 9-figure businesses. So they're very astute, and he's got a very good interest in helping entrepreneurs with those things that they can't see, just like most coaches do. They can see things you can't see pretty quickly, and he never makes me do anything. He just says, "I'm not sure I'd do that if I were you."
Yeah.
And whenever he says that, it's like,
yeah,
Roger that.
Yep, shouldn't do it. And Darrell, you're one of the few we've had on that has exited a business. You got any advice for our audience thinking about exiting one day from your experience?
Well, so I don't have a ton of exit experience. I think the 2 that I left were not true exits. One of them was a sale, but any advice for exiting? I'll give you the advice that I'm taking right now. And that is systematizing. Even what you think is systematized, it's probably not. So systematizing such that when you give someone something to do, you evaluate whether they could follow the process to do it. So that right now is what we're working very heavily on. Productizing is another thing, which means what are we going to be known for when this is over with? Right now, digital marketing agencies are wide, they're vast, they're all kinds of things, but we're going to work to be known for 3 things, and we're working on that right now. Obviously, growth is critical. We've had our stumbles in the last couple of years, but I don't see that being a big issue to put it back on track. But if you're going to exit, you got to have at least a 2, 3, 4 year track record. And then I think your profitability has to be a solid number in the industry, because you can make a lot of top line. If you don't have any bottom line, you're not valuable. So the last piece is one of my mentors, if you will, he's from a distance. Don't be a dancing bear business, as he says it, which is personal branding is kind of a big thing right now, right? And so are you the face of the brand, and will the brand be hurt in your absence? And so be careful, because sometimes when we start small businesses, we become the trusted authority in the business. So how do you step back from that so that you actually have something of value if you're not there? Because investors aren't going to buy it if they think it's going to fall apart when you leave.
Yeah, totally. Great advice.
Yeah.
All right, Darrell, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
I mean, I keep going back to this, so I'm trying to come up with a new answer. People are the hardest part. I mean, I think people are the hardest part, and I'd like to come up with a different answer, but I can't. And you would think that, but many times we've mentioned people, that we don't like them. I love the people. It's just the dynamic of getting all those pieces to work. I'm a marvel when I look at these big companies that have hundreds, tens of thousands of employees, how they get it to work. It's just amazing.
I could not do that. It's just that we're human. I love that Texan saying the definition of conflict is 2 people in the same county.
I love that one.
Yeah, it's true. We're just all different. We have bad days. We've got shit going on at home, or, we're in different seasons, and it's really hard.
Yeah, I've been around HubSpot for the last 8 years, and I've been listening to their growth path because we're connected as a partner, and I listen to the people that we're connected to, and it's a grind. It's a grind what they've got going on, but what they've done is fantastic. It's just a grind. There's a different animal of intensity in those type of companies, and I just never wanted it, and so I never wanted to put that kind of pressure on folks, and again, that was just my story. So
yeah. Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
I'm going to go away from the cliche books and probably give you one that maybe no one's heard of, and that is Scrum by Jim Sutherland. I think Jim Sutherland. And that's
from an agile methodology. Is that right? Yeah. Which came out of the tech space in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, it did. It did come out in the 90s. And we were able to apply that book to our agency at a very difficult time of pivoting back in 2014, 15. And we made some critical distinctions between the waterfall method of how traditional agencies do things, where it's like this person does this, then this person does this, then this person does this. Oh, this person's out for a week, so it can't go anywhere. And then we miss deadlines. So we started trying to take the software approach and bringing a collaborative group of people that had different skill sets, which we talked about a little bit earlier. And that book came to me 2015. Actually, I heard about it in 2013, and I didn't pick it up, but I remembered it. And then when we hit a little bit of a sticking point, I ran to that book, picked it up out of a local bookstore, believe it or not, even though I had an Amazon and it could have been here in 2 days. I ran to a local bookstore and got it, read it over the weekend, and we made some very significant changes in the agency over the next 3 weeks. So I say it's significant because I knew of the book and I had a feeling that I could apply it to our business. And so I'm always looking outside of our industry to find solutions. And right now I'm doing the same thing, although it's not a book. It's just me venturing outside the agency world to look for some new productizing strategies as we grow to the next level. So,
and one of the key messages from the agile methodology is sprints. So cutting your timeline down, not that waterfall approach, like you said. What window of sprints do you work to? 90 days, 1 month?
So actually we do them monthly.
Yeah.
And so our clients come in through a monthly process, but what it looks like for us is a 90-day commitment. And then we're breaking it down into 3 sprints, and then we finish the sprint and then we evaluate. And that's kind of what we're doing with the productizing, which is what worked well for us. And that is even on the paid media side of things, because things get a little bit weird where, you get into a month-to-month relationship, or you get a 12-month and, well, what are we going to guarantee? So it's easier to help a business owner make a decision in 90 days. And we can say point A to point B, did we do it or did we not do it? And then we can make a new decision. And that's worked out pretty well for us. And so we've sort of built our product offerings around that 90-day sprint window, and then we'll go to a 12-month window. So,
yep. Great. Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Oh my geez, I'm a tool junkie.
From a learning
So
point of
podcast,
view, yeah.
yeah, from a podcast standpoint, I mean, I listen to so many podcasts. Geez, hard to pinpoint just one, but what's one that I go back to on a regular basis? Holy smoke, man, you got me on this one. There's so many I listen to. I mean, I'm fans of Brendan Burchard. I'm fans of the one that's by the founder of Netflix. Something of Scale, Masters of Scale, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe that is he Netflix or is that LinkedIn? I get him confused.
Reid Hoffman, I think he's
Reid Hoffman.
LinkedIn, yeah.
LinkedIn. Yeah. I'm always listening to different things, but I'm also actually, believe it or not, I'm on YouTube more than I am on podcast actually now. I like snippets. Sometimes I don't have because I don't travel anymore to the office. So getting a 30-minute podcast in. So I try to get 10-minute, 15-minute things off of YouTube. So, and as far as online tools, I'm a tool junkie. So,
what's one tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
One tool. I think a CRM is essential. And it sounds cliche. It was the first tool that I got introduced to back in the day. A customer relationship management tool that has a single layer of access for all of what's going on from a prospecting to a sales to a service to a post customer relationship standpoint. I can't tell you still to this day in 2023 how many companies we work with that have 10, 15, 20,000 customers and they're in some ERP system or they're in QuickBooks or they're on a spreadsheet. Out loud. It is unbelievable. Wow. Unbelievable.
So you obviously use HubSpot, so you'd highly recommend them?
Yeah. I mean, I think HubSpot CRM is a good one. I don't think it's the only one on the planet. We just aligned all of our work with HubSpot because I needed a single source for marketing, sales, automation, service. And they've done a great job providing that. If you're not a HubSpot user or a HubSpot person, CRMs like Nimble, Pipedrive, High Level, there are so many CRMs. I think the key is people are afraid to use them. What I love about HubSpot particularly, and again, not to plug HubSpot, it's that I'm a business owner who's on the go. I wanted everything to work from a device. I want all of my business to work from this phone. I can use a laptop or a desktop, but my criteria was, does it have a mobile app that's robust? Am I able to stay in tune with what's going on in sales, service, prospecting, and my team? So my project management tool plus my CRM and all of the things in the middle had to work from a phone. That was one of my criteria. Now, they didn't have an app at the beginning, but now they do. So for me, that was one of my criteria.
Yep. Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
Sell more. Sell more and sell often. We get comfortable sometimes. We sell, we get out of the gate, then we service. We sell a little bit, then we get out of the gate. We got to be careful not to get into the sales roller coaster. And I've done it more times than I'd like to admit. Make sure your sales engine is running and make sure it's running. And I just had this conversation with our team as we're pivoting now, because we're launching some new stuff April 1. And I said, listen, we are going to come up with an MVP, a minimum viable plan that we will never stop doing ever, regardless. So that means, what are we going to do on social with this new product? What are we going to do on ads with this new product? What are we going to do on video? What is our MVP? Going back to the lean startup. And what can we make sure we will, it doesn't matter how many team members are here or gone, what will we never, ever stop doing? So we put this on a steady trajectory. And so that's probably the advice is sales cures all, as they say.
Yes.
So be careful to get into the service trap. Yeah, we did that a lot.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for your time today, Darrell. Really interesting and successful journey. A lot of lessons along the way that you've shared with the audience, and I know they're going to get a lot of value out of it. Really appreciate your time, and congratulations on your success to date and into the future.
Troy, thank you for having me. Thanks for hosting such a rich conversation of questions, and congratulations on all that you've done as well, and really appreciate you hosting the space for the conversation.
Thanks.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.